This is Thomas Neuhoff and Linda Cooper here with Henry and Peters, and we wanted to let you know about something that hasn't gotten a lot of attention related to the Paycheck Protection Program loans, and that's related to sales and acquisitions of businesses. And so we've actually seen, somewhat surprisingly, the number of mergers and acquisitions going on during this 2020 year not slow down much, and lots of people have been looking to sell, and there's lots of buyers out there looking to buy businesses. And so the SBA just recently on October 2nd issued a procedural notice that defines some requirements for businesses and business owners who have changes in ownership with a PPP loan, and what additional requirements they might have and things they might have to file.
So what is considered a change in ownership in regards to this procedural notice that came out?
Yeah, so the SBA's notice defines a change in ownership as a cumulative change in ownership since the day the PPP loan was approved through when forgiveness happens of 20% or more. And that 20% is cumulative, so it could be made up of multiple different changes, and it could also be changes in ownership with regard to already existing owners.
So when must the borrower tell the PPP lenders that they have a potential change of ownership?
Yeah, so any change in ownership that occurs before full forgiveness is granted or before the loan is repaid in full. In other words, when there is still a liability from the PPP loan, if there's a cumulative change in ownership of greater than 20%, you have to notify your PPP lender before the closing of the sale. And so that would occur any time that you are in negotiations, and you would need to provide a number of documents to your PPP lender that the SBA has set out.
So do I have to tell the SBA too, or just the lender?
So there is an additional requirement to tell the SBA and actually submit to the SBA for approval. If the change in ownership is greater than 50%, you have to tell the SBA prior to closing, and the SBA is actually going to review that information and have to approve it before the closing. There is one way to avoid having to go to the SBA for approval of the change in ownership, and that is if you set up a interest-bearing escrow account with your PPP lender, and this interest-bearing escrow account has to be funded with the same amount of the unpaid liability of the PPP note, and that balance would be there for the SBA in case the change in ownership were to happen and the PPP loan needed to be repaid. It would be repaid with those escrow funds. So if the change in ownership is greater than 50% and you do not set up an interest-bearing account, you need to notify the SBA for approval. The SBA will have 60 days to review. If you set up an interest-bearing account or the change in ownership is less than 50%, the SBA doesn't have to be notified ahead of time. You just need to notify your PPP lender.
Well, thank you, Thomas. That is great information. And as always, please check our website, www.henrypeters.com, and we're always updating that with updated information.